Hi, good afternoon. Continue reading aloud. This reading aloud. This reading aloud is to learn and practice English skill, improve my reading skill, and to educate. The Buddha's teachings via the Buddhasa Bhikku's book titled Handbook For Mankind. Some words may be reading with unclear pronunciation. By the way, I try my best to read with the most correct pronunciation on my accent, my background. Let's get started. Page number 9. So, if Buddhism is viewed with different degrees of intelligence, different pictures of it will be seen, simply because it can be viewed from any aspect. As we have said, Buddhism is a practical method for liberating oneself from suffering by means of coming to the light, as did the Buddha himself. The true nature of things. Now, any religious text is bound to contain material which later people have found occasion to add to. And our Tripitaka is no exception. People in later ages have added sections based on then occurring ideas, either in order to boost people's confidence, or out of excessive religious zeal. Regrettably, even the rites and rituals which have developed and become mixed in with the religion are now accepted and recognized as Buddhism proper. Ceremonies such as setting up trays of sweets and fruit as offering to the soul of the Buddha, in the same way as alms food is offered to a monk, just do not fit in with Buddhist principles. Yet some groups consider this to be genuine Buddhist practice, teaching it as such and keeping to it very strictly. Rites and ceremonies of this kind have become so numerous that they now completely obscure the real Buddhism and its original purpose. Take, for example, the procedure of becoming ordained a monk. There has come into existence the ceremony of making gifts to the newly ordained bhikkhu. Guests are, are invited to bring food and to watch proceedings, and as a result, there is much drunkenness and noise. Ceremonies are performed both at the temple and in the home. The new bhikkhu later leaves the order again only a few days after having been ordained, and may become an even stronger temple header than he was before. It must be borne in mind, bear borne. Take a note. Bear in mind, borne in mind, born. Bear born. Born. Bear born. It must be borne in mind that there was none of this at the time of the Buddha. It is a later development. Ordination at the time of the Buddha meant simply that some individual who had obtained his parents' consent, renounced home and family. He was a person who was able to close accounts at home and go off to join the Buddha and the order of bhikkhus. On some convenient occasion, he would go and be ordained and perhaps not see his parents or family again for the rest of his life. Though some bhikkhus might go back to visit their parents again on suitable occasions, this was rare. There does exist a rule permitting a bhikkhu go to home when there is a good reason for doing so, but at the time of the Buddha this was not. The daunting bhikkhus did not receive ordination with their parents in attendance, nor did they celebrate the event as a great occasion, only to leave the Sangha, again after just a few days, no better off than at first, as commonly happens in the present day. All this presenting of gifts in newly ordained bhikkhus, this performing of ceremonies, including all sorts of celebration, this we are foolish enough to call Buddhism. Furthermore, we choose to make much of it, thinking nothing of spending all our own money or other people's on account of it. This neo-Buddhism is so widespread as to be almost universal. The Dhamma, the genuine teaching that once was paramount, has become too overlaid by ceremonial that the whole objective of Buddhism has been obscured, falsified, and changed. Ordination, for instance, has become a face-saving gambit for young men whom people have been pointing at for never having been ordained, or a prerequisite to finding a wife, as having been a monk is considered a sign of maturity, or is done with some other kind of ulterior motive. In some places, an ordination is regarded as an opportunity for collecting money, for which job there are always people on hand to help. It is one way of getting rich. Even this they call Buddhism, and anyone who goes and criticizes this is considered to be ignorant of Buddhism or opposed to it. Another example is the presentation of Katina cloth. The Buddha's original intention was to have cloth for robes given to all the bhikkhus simultaneously so that they could sew it together together themselves with minimum loss of time. If there was only one robe, it was allocated to some bhikkhu, not necessarily the most senior one, whom the group considered worthy of using that robe or in need of it, and was presented to him in the name of the entire order. The bhikkhu's intention was to avoid any bhikkhus having a high opinion of himself. On that day, everyone, regardless of rank, had to humble himself and be one of the crowd. Everyone had to lend a hand cutting and sewing the cloth, boiling 3 pits to make the dye, and whatever else was involved in getting the robes ready and finished the same day, making the cloth into robes. Was a cooperative effort. That is how the Buddha intended it to be, and even not necessarily involving lay people at all. But nowadays, it has become an affair involving ceremony, fun and games, loud laughter, and money seeking. It is just picnic and is devoid of all the desirable results originally intended. The sort of thing is tumult, tumult, which has developed in Buddhism and thrived. The tumult takes hundreds of different forms, too numerous to name. It is dangerous, malignant growth, which by degrees has completely overlaid and obscured the good material, the real pit of Buddhism, and quite disfigure it. One result of this has been the arising of many sects, some large, some insignificant, as of shoots from the original religion. Some sects have even become involved in sensuality. It is essential that we always discriminate in order to recognize what is the real original Buddhism. We must not foolishly grasp at the outer shell or become so attached to the various rituals and ceremonies that the real objective becomes quite lost to view. The real practice of Buddhism is based on purification of conduct by way of body and speech, followed by purification of the mind, which in its turn leads to insight and right understanding. Don't go thinking that such and such is Buddhism just because everyone say it is. The tumor has been spreading constantly since the day the Buddha died, expanding in all directions right up to the present day, so that it is not quite sizable. The tumor in the Buddhism must not be misidentified as Buddhism too. Tumor. The tumor has been spreading constantly since the day the Buddha died, expanding in all direction, right up to the present day, so that the now quite sizable, the trauma, the trauma, 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 the trauma, the trauma เนื้องอกนะศาสนาเนื้องอกนะ the trauma in Buddhism must not be misidentified as Buddhism trauma เนื้องอก itself. It is also wrong for people of other religions to come and point at this shameful and disgraceful course as being Buddhism. It is unjust because these things are not Buddhism at all. They are excrescences. Those of us interested in furthering Buddhism, whether as a foothold for all people or for our own private well-being, must know how to get hold of the true essence of Buddhism and not just grab at some wordless outgrowth. Now, even the genuine Buddhism is many-sided, a fact which may lead to a false grasp of true meaning. For instance, if looked at from the point of view of a moral philosopher, Buddhism is seen to be a religion of morality. There is talk of merit and demerit and the demerit, good and evil, honestly, gratitude, harmony, open-heartedness, and much more besides. The Pitaka is full of moral teachings. Many newcomers to Buddhism approach it from the angle. It from this angle and angle เหลี่ยมหรือมุมนี้เหลี่ยมนี้ศาสนาในเหลี่ยมนี้ศาสนาพุทธในเหลี่ยมไหนเหลี่ยมนี้ and are attracted to it on this account. A more profound aspect is Buddhism as truth, as a deep hidden truth lying below the surface and invisible to the ordinary man. To see this truth is to know intellectual emptiness of all things. The transience, unsatisfactoriness, and non-selfhood of all things, to know intellectually the nature of suffering, of the complete elimination of suffering, and of the way to attain the complete elimination of suffering. To perceive this in terms of absolute truth, the kind that changes and which everyone ought to know. This is Buddhism as truth. Truth, 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 truth. Buddhism as religion. Buddhism as religion is Buddhism as a system of practice based on morality, concentration, and insight, and culminating in liberating insight, a system which, when practiced to completion, enables one to break free from suffering. This is Buddhism as religion. Then there is Buddhism as philosophy. Then there is Buddhism and psychology, as it is presented to us in the third section of the Pitaka, where the nature of the mind is described in remarkable detail. Buddhist psychology is a sort of interest and astonishment to students of the mind even in the present day. It is far more detailed and profound than present-day psychological knowledge. Another aspect is Buddhism as philosophy. Philosophical knowledge can be clearly seen by means of reason, logical proof, but cannot be demonstrated experimentally. It contrasts with science, which is knowledge resulting from seeing something clearly with our eyes or through physical experimentation and proof, or even with the inner eye of intuition. Profound knowledge, such as that of emptiness, is just philosophy for a person who has not yet penetrated to the truth, and science for a matter who has done so, such as a fully enlightened individual or arahant who has seen it clearly. Intuitively, many aspects of Buddhism, in particular the Four Noble Truths, are scientific insofar as they can be verified by clear experimental proof using introspection. For anyone equipped with awareness and interested in studying and carrying out research, the cause effect relationships are there just as in science. Buddhism is not just something obscure and vague, not just philosophy, as are man-made subjects. Some look on Buddhism as culture. Anyone with a high regard for culture finds many aspects of Buddhist practice which are common to all cultures, and also many that are characteristically Buddhist and far better and higher than anything in other cultures. Of all these various aspects, the one a real Buddhist ought to take most interest in is Buddhism as religion. We ought to look on Buddhism as a direct practical method for gaining knowledge of the true nature of things, knowledge which makes it possible to give up every form of grasping and clinging, of stupidity, and infatuation, and become completely independent of things. To do this, to penetrate to the essence of Buddhism, the Buddhism considered in these aspects is far more useful than Buddhism considered as mere morality, or as truth which is simply profound knowledge and not really practical, and more useful than Buddhism considered as philosophy, as something to be enjoyed, as an object of speculation, an argument of no value in the giving up of the mental defilements, and certainly more useful than Buddhism considered simply as culture, as attractive behavior, noteworthy from the sociological viewpoint. At the very least, everyone ought to consider Buddhism as art, as the art of living in order. In other words, as skill and competence in being a human being, living in a way that is exemplary and praiseworthy, which so impresses others that they automatically wish to emulate it. What we have to do is to cultivate the three lusters. Firstly, developing moral purity, training the mind to be tranquil and steady and fit to do its job. And finally, developing much and abundance of wisdom, and clear insight into the nature of all things, that those things are no longer able to give rise to suffering. Whenever one's life has these three luster, let me check a pronunciation. Luster. Three lusters. He can be considered to have mastered in the art of living. Westerners are extremely interested in Buddhism as the art of living and discuss this aspect more than any other, penetrating too far into the real essence of Buddhism that we are able to take it as our guide to living induces spiritual good cheer and joy, dispersing, dispersing depression and disillusionment. It also dispels fears, such as the fear that the complete giving up of spiritual defilements would make life dry and dreary and utterly devoid of flavor, or the rare that complete freedom from craving would make all thought and action impossible. Whereas in reality, a person who organizes his life in accordance with the Buddhist art of living is victor over all the things about him, regardless of whether these things be animals, people, possessions, or anything else, and regardless of whether they enter that person's consciousness by way of the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, or mind. They will enter as losers, unable to be crowned, defy, or perturb him. The winning of victory over all things is genuine bliss. 16, page number 16. Again, this reading aloud is to learn and practice English skill, improve my reading skill, and to educate the Buddha's teachings via the Buddhasa Bhikku's book titled Handbook for Mankind. Some words may be reading with unclear pronunciation. By the way, I try the best to read with most right pronunciation on my accent and my background of self-learning. Thank you so much for reading. Have a good time. Have a great day.